Hi guys, good evening and welcome to this session by Mentally Careers on financial. Hi guys, good evening and welcome. Okay, so as you might have realized that since a couple of weeks we have been preparing content specifically for finance interviews because it's finance session at the finance placement going on at the moment. And what I realized is talking to a lot of students, most of the time students are not even aware of how these interviews get conducted. So what we did is we actually built a small short courses which you could actually use and at least try to get an awareness of where your skills are required, right? It's not all over the place because people think that you need to know everything, but that's not how it actually works. There are specific things that you actually require uh, for the finance interview, right? And also people have a lot of confusion with trying to make the entire interview preparation very complex, right? It actually is not that complex, right? If you really understand what the interviews are going to be about and what is the objective of the interviewer to actually test, right? So taking it from there, I just wanted to give you a reminder that this session I will be doing the final employability quiz, okay, which is similar to a real finance interview that you actually come across. Okay, so that's the reason why we had launched that mini course. If in case you have not done the prerequisites and you've still come to the session, no problem, you can still attend the session. But what I am referring to is basically the final employability quiz test. Okay, so I'm just gonna just gonna move through my slides to explain you uh, the logic of these finance interviews and finally end up with starting the case. All right. So most of the times you have to understand that any finance role, okay, starts by first looking at data. You need to find the data somehow, right? I mean, you can't just do the analysis unless and until you are able to locate the data. And hence, it's a consistent trend that I have seen is that most of the interviews, finance interviews, and I can open lots of examples which I have with me to show you that most of them will focus on referencing, lookup, and analysis slash visualization, right? So, and that's the amount of Excel you actually require at the first stage for the first round of the interview. I'm not saying the entire round of the interview, okay? I'm not talking about the 3 rounds. I'm talking about the first round, the first usual test that you come across. Okay. So referencing, and that's exactly the prerequisite content I have made and I have put it across in the mini course, which is there in the description. If you have not found it, please go to the link and just download that template. And of course, there are small videos and quizzes which you can do, right? Looking, right? So when I say looking, it means VLOOKUP, index, and match, like 3 major functions on finding out data somehow, right? And they both are required at some level. Index and match can be a little longer. It can be a little more complex to implement versus, let's say, we are talking about VLOOKUP, which is pretty easy to do, right? But a lot of candidates also know these functions. Okay, they know these functions, but the problem is the interview case really is not direct on telling you, okay, use VLOOKUP and find this data. Most of the time they don't even tell you what function to use, right? And that is what the final case study is about, right? So the gist is any finance first round interview is going to be focusing on referencing, finding the data, and visualizing the data. All right. Now, these tests are basically about 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. Max to max, 15 to 20 minutes is the time it's given to you. They usually give you a large data set, which might look very daunting because just looking at the scale of the data, people tend to get confused. And there are about 5 to 6 questions is what you actually see, right? Now, this is how the course was designed for you to do, and we are doing basically the last part. the employability quiz data set, right? The case study that we're going to do. But all this content is already free. So if you want to, after the class, if you have not done it, you can just go and get it revised as well. All right. Now, what I'm going to start is with the live YouTube class case study. Okay. I would highly recommend you, if you want to ace these case study, which you will come across interviews, to spend a lot of time on the second part, the data lookup functions, and try out with various data sets. Do not get fixated with only very small examples. Try to use these functions in various different scenarios. Okay, and that will just open up your brains on applying this across data sets. All right. Now, specifically, I designed this course and also designed these quizzes for MBA finance candidates majorly, because they sit for placements, and they come across various such interviews that they have to sit for. And graduate commerce students, of course, if you're looking out for job, right? So please do let me know if you have the case study with you, so that I can start in the chat box quickly, if you can tell me. So that will just help me in not wasting any time. Okay, and if you have found, then I'm going to open the case study. Okay, and I'm going to first take you through, even since I guess some of you might have not done the case study or the prerequisites. So what I'll do rather is first try to quickly take you through the vlookup and index and match function. Okay, so you must be having this template definitely with you, right? And I'm going to start with showing you the logic of vlookup and index and match, rather than just telling you what vlookup and match is, right? So please bear with me for about 10 to 15 minutes. That will help us in creating the base for doing that case study. Okay, please do give me a thumbs up if you are with me. If there are any doubts so far, please do let me know, so that we can just clear it out before moving ahead quickly. Anyone has any doubt, please do let me know quickly. And I'm just trying to get hold of the chat box so that I can just look it out from here. Okay, great. So no doubts. Fantastic. So let's start up. Okay. Now, if you can see out here, so no doubts. Fantastic. If you can see out here, we've got, always remember, guys, whenever you are approaching interviews, I highly recommend you to spend some time looking at the data. Okay, I've seen a lot of candidates just jumping and then start solving and answering the questions, and then coming back and getting confused as to what they had to find at the first place, right? So spend some time looking at the data properly. Okay, and when I say looking at the data, all I mean to say is just try to scan through what these columns are and what are the various attributes of the data, right? So if you see, you can clearly see these are numbers, these are characters, these are numbers which are separated with some special characters, and then you've got numbers and numbers again, right? So once you have a quick look at the data, what this data is about, it makes it easier when we are putting up the functions. All right. Now, as I was saying, in finance, what it is required is to look up data first. At the first place, you have to look data, right? So if you see out here, I have 19800, which is my customer number. Now it's a number. And I'm supposed to find the related attribute or the related data point of 19800, right? So naturally speaking, we want to first build and set the logic of how any lookup function works. Any, doesn't matter whether it's vlookup, index match, xlookup, doesn't matter. The idea is, how would even Excel try to look up for 19800, right? So for example, using customer number, if I have to find customer name, right? So customer number is in the A column, and I want to find customer name. So if you ask yourself one very simple question, that about 19800. If I ask you one thing about 19800, do you know which column this data is on easily, or do you know which row this data is on easily? If you have to answer this, how do you answer? Is it the column that you know most of the times, or is it the row that you know most of the times? If you can quickly answer that in the chat box, please let me know. What do we know most of the time? Do we know the row or do we know the column? What is it going to be? Row or column? And when I say row or column, what I mean to say is that 19800 is basically customer number, right? So most of the times you know the column on which customer number is on, right? So you know columns. It's on A number, right? It's on A column. Exactly, Arvind. Thank you for that answer, right? So A we already know, but what do we not know? We don't know the row number, right? So let's just write out the problem here. So most of the time we know the column number is known, but row number is unknown, right? So naturally speaking, if you apply the principle of problem solving, you would want to find out a solution which can find the row number, isn't it? So you want to find out a solution, a function which could find out on which row number is 19800 on, right? So if you apply the same logic, and if let's say we do not use any functions as of now, we're just using logic, right? So Excel, let's say we wrote some function, it goes to A column because we know the column number, right? So it goes to A column and starts counting, right? It starts counting on which number, serial number is 19800. So it starts counting. Let's say we start counting from the second column, since the first column is on description. So we skip the first column. So it starts counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it finds out that, okay, this data is basically on the 6th row. So it found out some number, some serial numbering happened. So we found out that the row number is actually 6. Getting it? So row number is 6. That's all that found out, right? That's all that any function could have done. Now what it does is, once it has reached here on the 6th row, it will, you just need to ask, okay, so just find the adjacent data. So you've got many adjacent data, you see. You've got customer name, you've got order number, you've got revenue, you've got profit. You could just link, you could just find the intersection, right? That's exactly how any lookup, vlookup, xlookup, hlookup, index match function would do. Find out the relative position and then relate it with any adjacent, related data. That's how any lookup function works. This is the concept that you should know before you use any of these functions, okay, in real time. Okay, so let's try it out with vlookup and you will get the idea on what we're trying to do. Okay, so vlookup, please let me know if my screen is visible. If you need me to zoom, I will do it for you. And I hope you have the template. If you don't have the template, please do let me know quickly. Okay, I will make some arrangements to give you the file immediately. Okay, Riddhi, Arvind, I hope you guys have the template with you, because there's no point doing this unless and until you do it. You can't really observe this, right? Okay, so I'm guessing that you guys have the Excel. Anyways, what I'll do is, even if you don't have, even if you have, in fact, what I'll do is I'll just create I'll create this file for you to share, because I guess a lot of you will have issues finding this. Just give me a moment, guys. I'll just share this file with you. So I'm putting both the files, the employability test as well as the quiz. The case that we're just doing right now. Okay. So I'm just sharing you a Google Drive link. Okay. Just give me a moment. I'm just putting this across in the Google Drive. Okay, I'm sharing you the link, guys. Please do open it up. Okay. Okay, I'm sharing you the link, guys. Please do open it up. Okay, I've shared the link. Please click on it. It's an open folder. Okay, I'm sharing. It's an open folder. You can just download it quickly. Only then it will make sense. Okay. Please do confirm once you have the file live with you, so you can do it with me. Are we good to go? Okay. So now the same logic, let's apply it out here in this case. So we open up the vlookup function, and please be careful when you're looking at the function. Just properly look at what is actually given out here. Okay. So it says looks for a value in the leftmost column of a table. See the same logic? Leftmost column of a table. That means that the vlookup function is going to look at the row number for 19800 in the leftmost side of the selection. Leftmost side. Okay. So it automatically has created a restriction stating that however you select, on the leftmost side is where it's going to look out for the data. So I select the data, comma, okay, and I go to the left hand side and I select the table. Okay, this is the table that Excel is talking about. Okay, your selection, not the table itself. Okay, and since we just want the customer name, we could also limit our selection till column B. We don't really have to go till column E, but even if we go, it won't make any difference. All right. So I have selected the lookup value. I've selected the table array, which means from the leftmost side to the right. And I have to make sure that the customer number column is on the leftmost side. Otherwise, this won't work. Okay. Otherwise, this won't work. So, comma. Now it's saying indexing. Now it's indexing. So it found out the row number. At this stage, it's basically found out on which row number this 19800 is on. Okay. And then it was asking you to index, which means it's telling relative to that position, which column data do you want to see? So if you see on the left hand side, if this is 1, A is 1, then basically the data is on column 2. So my index is going to be the number 2, right? Comma. Now we want an exact match, right? We don't want an approximate value to be displayed out here. So I'm going to put 0, which is the shortcut for exact match. Now that's the logic behind using vlookup, right? The reason why I did this before getting into the employability case study is so that you get a background if in case you've not still build the logic on vlookup and index and match, right? Now index and match, how is index and match different, right? The beautiful thing about index and match is that it removes this restriction of left and right. Getting it? Meaning I don't really have to make sure that the customer number is to the left. I can also try to look for the row number to the right, even if the data that I want to find out is to the left. In vlookup, you can't do that. That means any data that you want to search has to be to the right of your selection, which is a bit of a problem, right? But with index and match, you really don't have any issues. But the only problem with index and match is that it can sound a little more complex than it actually is if you don't know the logic. Okay. So let's look at the same logic. Do not forget the logic what I talked about. Okay. Finding the row number first. Okay. Now let's try to do the same function, say the same question with index and match. Okay. And the first step in finding out the data is to find out the row number, if you remember, right? So to find out the row number without using vlookup, the function we use is match. Okay, just the row number. So if I want to find out the row number of 19800, all I do is select the value that I want to find out the row number for, put a comma there, okay? And you know which column this data is on, which is on the first column. So I stream through the first column. And it does not matter whether you select the headers or do not select the headers, because at the end, even the headers can be counted, right? All you need to do is make sure that you know that the header is selected. So if I select this entire column, okay, so, and I put comma, match type as 0, you will find out the row number which this data is on. Okay, so you press enter and you found out basically that the data is on 6th row, right? That's what even vlookup was actually doing till here. You see, till here, vlookup also did the same thing what we did in match, right? But we can go a step ahead and remove the restriction of finding data any place in the entire table by using index. Index is just, trying to find out, you're just trying to index the entire 6 or 7 rows. You're just trying to number it, right? So in index, it does not matter, what selection you do. You can select the entire table. So let's say I selected the entire table, right? And now row number. So remember, for row number, I wrote the match function already, right? I already wrote the match function, but you could also write the match function inside index, which is match. Now this might sound complex, but if you just try to focus, you will get it that it's not a very complex function that I'm actually writing, right? It's the same function that I wrote out here that I'm trying to replicate it inside index. So it just makes things a little more faster. So I selected index, I select the entire table, comma, match. And then what I'm looking out for? I'm looking out for 19800, right? The row number. So comma, and I know which row, column this 19800 is on. So I can go to the A column, comma 0. And now last is, on what column data do you really want to see? Now this is where index becomes very interesting, because you can just literally find out data from any column, right? So if you want B, we can find B. If you want C, D, E, doesn't really matter, right? So let's say we want to find out the same customer name. So I'll just put column number as 2 and close it. So in the same manner, you could also use index and match. And trust me, you should know this function, because a lot of times vlookup is not going to work, because vlookup will have the restriction. Please let me know if you have any doubts till here. And then I move into the case study. Okay, this was just a quick refresher, if in case you didn't know this already. Any doubts, guys? Please let me know. Are we good? Okay, so now we move into the case study. How would a real interview look like? Okay. So I'm opening the new case study. You can open it at your end as well. Now, these are basically the cases that we actually do in the class also, as we call it as employability test. But it makes a hell lot of a difference in the real interview, right? Okay. Okay. So you can open up the next Excel. Okay. Now, this is how usually a real interview can look like, right? So just looking at the size of the data, sometimes I've seen students just becoming blank, right? Because, we are used to working in Excel for just 3 or 4 lines or maybe in 60 lines. But once you get, let's say, this is even shorter, but let's say if you had a data set about 60,000 cells, people do get a little intimidated with it, right? But if you stick to the logic, you'll never get confused. And again, you need to apply logic. So let's look at the first, and these are employability quiz which we create by observing a lot of finance interviews one by one. Okay, so look at the first question. What is the price of Moderna on these specific dates? Now, again, do not jump into calculation very quickly. You will just disappoint yourself. Right? First, look at the data first properly. Look at what this data is about. This is basically about stock prices, right? So you've got stock prices on almost, uh, 6 to 7 columns, right? You've got the price data, and you've got date on the A column, and then after that, for each and every column, you've got percentage change, which basically means it's trying to find out by how much percentage the data is actually changing on a daily basis, right? So if you actually go and just put F2, just press F2, then you will see the formula, which is just trying to find out by how much the data the price of the stock has changed. That's all it's about, right? So now once you know the data that, okay, these are pharma companies and its stock prices and the percentage change is mentioned, let's look at the first question. And first, just observe, because there might be a way to do this question very quickly. Instead of doing it one by one, there might be a way to do this very quickly if you pay attention. Okay, don't jump into calculation quickly. So what is the price of Moderna? So if you see 2 times we have been asked prices of stocks, so that's a pattern, right? I mean, we can probably find a solution to do this quickly by making a template for the first 2 questions, right? And the third question is a straightforward question where we need to find out on which date this is on, right? So let's start with the first 2 questions, which you actually can combine. Okay, so let's try to do one thing. Let's try to take Johnson and Johnson name. Let's copy it from here and take it and paste it out here, right? So I just pasted the name, and let me also paste the name of Moderna. Okay. And if you see in both the cases, we've been given some dates on which we're supposed to find what the stock price is, right? So if you see in both the questions, the dates are actually same, right? Now, it is the case here, but it obviously can be different in a different interview also. But nevertheless, today is a lucky day. So we have the same dates for both questions. So we can just copy this out here very easily, straightforward. Just make a template. A short template, sweet template, solves the problem very fast and just reduces the time of clearing this interview and maybe spend more time in questions which you are not good at, right? So I've got the date, got the names, and all I need to find out is what's the price. So can you suggest me which function to use? Should I use vlookup or should I use index and match? What's it going to be? Is it going to be vlookup or is it going to be index and match? Which one do you suggest? And when you try to answer that, try to think from the constraint angle. What is that you're trying to look up for? What I'm going to search using. So what is going to be my lookup value and where is it is the question to answer. And based on that is where we decide which function to use. Any ideas? Arvind, Riddhi? Which function do you suggest for the first question, which is going to not just save time, but also going to make us do it more easily? Which one do you think? Is it going to be vlookup or is it going to be indexing match? Let me lead you to that answer. Okay. So if you look, my lookup data is actually going to be date, because in both the cases, date is what we have in common, and using date is what we want to find the price for. If you look, date is out here to the leftmost side, right? And price is to the right. So vlookup can actually work very easily, right? So we're going to start using vlookup. But I'm going to just give you a hint on how to probably even not use the column number for Johnson & Johnson model. You can actually use match for it. That also I'll show, but first I'll show you the simpler way. So lookup value is this, comma, right? And since I want to drag the formula to the right, you want to make sure that you put the column $sign, okay? Because if you do not put the column $sign, then when you drag this to the right, your formula will become incorrect, okay? So your table array is now going to be starting from A all the way up to, I mean, you can even select it till here. That's not a problem. Okay, so I made the selection and make sure you do the absolute referencing to fix the entire thing. And absolute referencing, you can use F4 to get these $signs. Okay. And now you want the indexing to happen, right? Now here there are two ways. One is the manual way in which you go and count, on which column is this data is on. But that's a little more tedious. So what we could actually do is we could also use match to find out the column number of Johnson & Johnson. That's the reason why we copied the name of Johnson & Johnson exactly, right? So we select Johnson & Johnson and we put the row $sign so that it'll move to the right, but it'll not come down. And we select the first row, right? And we put the match type as 0. So that's going to be basically our column number and make it 0 at the end. And there you go. That's my price. So we didn't actually even put the column index number directly. It just happened by itself by using relevant functions very easily. And you see how quickly we're able to answer the question if you just look at the data properly. And this is the mistake that people make in the finance interview, because they think that 15-20 minutes is too less time, but it's actually not less time, because the test was not about just testing whether you knew the function, but also want to test whether how smart you are into doing very quickly, right? So that's the reason why you need such kind of practices to continuously happen, which will simplify things. Please, just if you want to take a quick look at the formula, you can quickly take, so that after that, I'll move into the third question. So we caught two birds with one stone using proper logic. Okay. And believe me, I'm not exaggerating this interview. This is how it really is. Okay. Please do let me know if you are on with me. Okay. If this is done, I hope this was useful. Let's move into finding on which date was the price of this stock 47.97. So I think it's pretty simple. In this case, all you need to do is just copy the number, okay? Because if they've given a specific number, that means the data is unique. So let me just paste it out here, 47.97. And in this case, and it's up to me, I would probably recommend using index and match, right? So I'm going to use index and match out here. So there you go, index. Remember why I'm not using vlookup, because vlookup is not going to work out here because the price is to the right. You see, the price is here and the data that I want to find out is to the left. So it's not going to work out. So I need to use index and match. Okay. So first is to use index the same way and select the entire table. Doesn't matter how you want to select it, just select it. Then match, use the match function to find out the row number. So I'm going to select the data point which I'm searching for, 47.97. Select the column on which this data point is on, which is the I column, 0. So it's going to give me the row number, comma. And my date is to the first column. So I'm just going to put 1. There you go. Now, some people will also get confused. Oh, this is not a date. This is exactly date. You just need to go and change the format to date. Okay, so 22/11/2019 is where this price was for the stock, right? So again, where it was you could have done this very fast if you knew the logic of which function to use, and you could have arrived at the solution very quickly, right? Now, what was the date on which the highest negative daily price fluctuation on Inovio Pharmaceutical stock price happened? What was the date? But it is asking you an application. So it's first trying to asking you what is the highest negative fluctuation on this stock. So first idea is to actually find out the fluctuation, but it's talking about the highest negative. So we are going to use the minimum function. And since we are talking about a specific stock, which is Inovio, right? So Inovio is 1, 2, 3, 4th. So we can count it from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, this one. And we're going to select the entire column. So the highest fluctuation is actually 42%. And we want to find out on which date this has happened. On which date this has happened, right? So what we can do is we can use, again, index and match. In this case, we have no option but to select the entire table. Use a match function to locate the value, which is 42%, right? And the column on which this data is on is basically the mth column, right? M column, right? Now make sure to do the same selection as you're doing it for the array. You don't want to do separate selection for one and separate selection for the other. Never make that mistake. Okay. So there you go. That's my lookup array for the percentage. Match type is 0. And the column number that I want to find out is 1. So again, change the format to date. Just go up, change the format to date. So 10/3/2020. Right? And again, the last question is pretty similar. It's actually a true or false question. It's asking you whether the daily price on Johnson & Johnson happened on 23/03/2020. So first, let's find out what is the negative fluctuation on Johnson & Johnson. If you want to look at the previous formula, please do let me know. I'll just pause and show it to you. So 7%. And I want to find out when this happened. So again, index and match. Match, pick up the value on which you want to search. Johnson & Johnson column, 0, and the data in which you are looking out for. There you go. So that's the date we're looking out for. So the answer would be, it is true that it actually happened on 23rd of March 2020. So please do let me know if you have any questions out here. So that's how you actually do the employability case study, which is there in the Excel for Finance interview course, which we launched. And this was the final case study, which was due to be discussed live. Right. So I hope this made sense. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you have any doubts related to these two functions or anything else that you want me to talk about, we can quickly discuss and end for the day. Any questions, guys? I also would like to inform you that the next live session will be on a valuation case study, which is again related to the second round of an interview. Once you actually clear the first round of an interview, you move into the second round of an interview, which usually is about finance and valuation, right? But for that, you need to know financial statements and you need to know the basics of valuation, without which you cannot actually do this, right? Okay, so since you guys are in the process of asking questions, so what I'll do is, meanwhile, I'll also show you some of the questions, some of the cases which are similar to these, which actually come up in the interview. Okay, so I'm just going to show it to you. Just trying to prove a point that why you need to know certain things. Okay, so we create this kind of cases on a weekly basis, newer ones. I'm just going to show it to you quickly. Now, this, the latest one, which actually we are teaching in the class, is actually from a large investment bank company in India. And somehow we were able to replicate that. So we really spend a lot of time trying to understand how our students have given a certain interview and then trying to replicate such cases in the classes so that it gives them more practice. And trust me, for them also, for anyone, it takes time. It takes time before you can actually become good at it. Right? Okay, so this is one of the case studies which we will look similar, right? So if you see, this is how even a real interview can again look like. Now it's a little different, but at the end of the day, it's again trying to push you to the same logic, right? I hope you can see my screen, right? There you go. So they've given you some stock data again. Now this is from an actual investment bank, okay, which was conducting its first round. So you've got various details of the company's financials of various companies, right? And you've been given certain tasks which you have to complete. Is exactly the first round, okay? So if you see out here, what is the first question is asked? Fill in the blanks in yellow cells using the relevant function. So I've actually solved this already, right? But all you had to do was trying to find out the market cap and net income from this data set below using these lookup values, right? So that's what I'm saying. Knowing vlookup is not going to help. You have to put yourself into those situations where you can actually apply it, right? Look at the second question. Calculate the net margins for the healthcare sector for 2017 expected. So, and there's a sector which is mentioned out here, and the data is pointers here. So you need to look out for the sector out here and try to find out what is the net margin which is to the right. So in this case, you can clearly make out that you can use vlookup very easily, right? But at the when you're trying to give the interview, it tends to become a little more challenging because there's time pressure plus there's tension that you might be feeling that you're underprepared. So all of that brings that pressure, and that's the reason why a lot of people will just be confused and not be able to clear the first one. But if you have enough practice, you will be able to see the third question. Create the table with gross margins by sector. So now they're telling you to make a table, right? A template. So for 2016 and 17, you need to get the gross margins of these companies, these sectors which are mentioned out here, right? Now, if you knew the logic of the function, these three questions could have been done in 10 minutes, right? And finally, the last question is on calculating the number of companies that are there in each and every sector out here, each and every sector, right? So this is obviously not going to work with vlookup, but you need certain other functions like count ifs to do, right? So my point of showing you this is actually not to teach you something out here in this template. The point was to tell you that finally finance interviews will be on applications, an application on data, and generally just an awareness level of Excel is not going to work. So make sure that you go to that mini course again, right? And do complete the prerequisite. I mean, I don't know if you've still not got, the link is in the description. Just go to that course, register yourself. It's free of charge. Do the prerequisites, and maybe after that, if you want to come down to this live stream recording again, come back to the stream, practice it again, and then try it out again. And I am 100% sure that you will see an improvement in your scores and in your abilities once you do that. But do not skip steps. Spend some time with the data, spend some time with the case study, spend some time with the questions, and it becomes easier. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I am going to take your leave from this session. And please do let me know if you have any questions to ask, if you have any suggestions to give out to us, and anything else you would like to talk about. So we have exactly 5 minutes before which we close the stream. And by the way, if you don't know me, if you have not met me, I am the same person who makes the videos. My name is Aravindan. I'm a CFA charter holder and also a trainer for financial modeling in CFA. I've been teaching for about quite some time now. Before this, I was into product management, and before that, I was into fund management. So that's my experience. Okay, Riddhi, can we get an example template? Yes, Riddhi. If you just go to the course, the template is already there. The template is already there. Just go there, just download it. It's free of charge. And give us a week's time, and I will update it with a new template also, so you can practice, right? And don't worry, we will be conducting such sessions every week, so we can always hang out again. And but next time, if you already know financial statements and a little bit of capital budgeting, then do attend the valuation preparation for interview. Right? Thanks, guys, and we'll meet you again. If you have any questions, please put it in the comment box. And thank you so much for joining in. You have been an amazing audience. Bye-bye.